Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Mike Olivieri texted me and he will be a couple minutes late, he said. So I just want to pass that message to you folks.
Thank you.
Yep. I will be here, but I'm going off video for a while.
Hey,
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the May meeting of the Community Development Committee. Looks like we have a nice cozy group here. Is Carl the only one that's on?
I think he said Mike said he was gonna be a few minutes late. I don't know if it's virtual or if it's in person.
All right, well, we're going to get rolling. Tonight we have several, actually it's 6:35, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And we have several items on the agenda tonight, mostly to do with our expenditures, the timeliness, and how, how folks are doing, spending the money that we have allocated to them. So we will move right down the list. I guess you guys can decide who's going to field these items. First item is the sub-recipient expenditures and the amounts of monies that have not been spent down.
Okay, I don't know, Elisa, can you give me screen share?
Yes, hold on one second. Okay, you're all set.
Thank you.
I took a picture of it.
Don't
Okay,
do those first. I totally just did it. Oops, I'm not sure what that is. This might take a second because I'm not really sure what I'm doing here.
You're in the meeting?
Yeah.
Virtual in the meeting?
I'm right here.
Oh, there should be somewhere to share.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, so we were asked to put together a listing of the expenditures of sub-recipients who have received money and what their timeliness was, in addition to ours. So the first table says synopsis to kind of give an idea of the unexpended funds as of actually today, but May 2nd, when we had our timeliness test. The only reason that it's 2019 forward is because every other year has already been closed out. So as everybody can see, in 2019, real quick, and each tab will give a better explanation, but this is just a brief overview. For 2019, regular CDBG funding, there's 301,197.97 that still needs to be spent. That's for the sewers project. And there was $58,016.49 for the COVID funding that needs to be reallocated as well. 2020 shows 72,590.53. There was nothing in 2021. 2022, we still have $743,591.94 that needs to be expended. And 2023, we are expecting the amount to be what HUD had allocated to us for $683,822. We have submitted the annual action plan for 2023. It takes anywhere from 45 to 60 days for them to review. It goes to our field office person, and then it goes up the chain of command at HUD. Once they review and approve, they will send us a letter telling us that we have the ability to draw down funds, at which time the mayor will enter into a contract with HUD. And once he enters into contract and that goes back to them, then we can start drawing down the money. So anybody that we have awarded funding to for 2023 cannot start spending any funds until we get that letter from HUD. And we expect that we'll have it by or before July 1st, because we were able to get that in early enough.
But what about the monies that we currently have now that are not spent now?
Well, we did not make timeliness again this year. We did not make timeliness for 4 years, and then I got us into timeliness, and then we're back out of timeliness. Amy and I can only chase people around so much, but everybody's in this together. So if the sub-recipients aren't spending, that affects our timeliness. If the city's not spending, that affects our timeliness. We don't know if we're going to be sanctioned or not. It's possible. This was a pretty high ratio of of expenditures that were not spent. They did manage to get a $300,000 spent down.
So you're close.
We had to spend almost $1 million and we didn't make it. So we got just under 700,000 that, we're still over on timeliness. So we don't know what's gonna happen. They will send us a letter. It's possible we could be sanctioned. And by sanctioned, the chances of them pulling all of like 2023 funding is pretty slim. But they might, go out a couple of years and say, okay, for the next 2 or 3 years, they're gonna be sanctioned 200,000 or 250 to make up for what we weren't able to spend.
Right.
The fact that we just submitted our annual action plan, and I did not do it before May 1st, because that would have put us even further over the edge. So on this spreadsheet, you can see where we were allocated for 2023, 683, 822, and if you multiply that by 1.5, that's 1,025,733. That's the most we can have in the US Treasury on May 1st of 2024. Right now, the total previous and current totals the 1,859,218.93. The maximum allowed was up above the 1,025,000. You subtract that, so we have to spend at least $833,485.93 by May 1st of 2024 to make timeliness.
And how's that looking?
By when, May 1st?
I know, it sounds like it's a long time away, but when you think about how much money that is, that's kind of,
In the way that we spend it is allocating it towards people that are asking for it, or is it?
right, so when you guys all meet and you talk about the applications that come in, and you make your recommendations to the mayor, and then the mayor
That's
looks at
what-
everything, that's where the allocations go. Granted, there have been, I don't know, there are hiccups or what, there was a slowness in the, Sewers project. So I thought maybe they would have spent more than they did by now, but they haven't, but they said that, I think they said that by the end of the summer, they should be able to have all of the money spent.
And so, there was a slowdown because of what, like design?
Well, one of the
things?
design was being done, but GPI wasn't invoicing. Once the
And that's
invoice
the
is when they're
consultants.
getting the money, they're the design and engineers. And we've given them $110,000 out of $180,000 project, and now we're also starting to pay our Genie outgoers. They're doing the construction. Sterling, right? Is anything
Yeah,
else being done?
Sterling.
And Van Dusen?
And Henry, and,
I think Henry's Complete Streets, I don't think that's,
that's not, okay.
yeah, I don't
Sterling,
think so.
Sterling,
Sterling
Prospect.
and Van Dusen.
I think they're over there somewhere, so, yeah,
I avoid it because I know the place is
yeah.
pretty much nice. No offense. They're working on
Happy
it.
to see something happening up there now.
Yeah, right,
It's been, we asked for it in 2020.
right. It's only been 100 years.
So what we did was, 2019, we laid out 2019 through 2023 of everybody that was funded. Some people along the line decided that they couldn't do the project, so,
They have to give the money back, right?
well, yeah, I mean, they didn't, Technically,
They
they-
relinquished the award, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't have it. but-
So they had to let us know that they couldn't do it, so then the money, the project was canceled out on IDIS, which is the reporting system for HUD. And then the monies were reallocated, so, on some of these lines, you'll see where it says reallocated.
Yeah.
So
So what do they tell you the reason why they can't do it?
it
Well,
depends, what was the one?
so the Wine Park, for example, they were awarded $55,000. The environmental review, Arlene had asked them, where did you get the soil from and when and how much? So that we knew we weren't building a playground on top of the brownfield. And they couldn't provide the information. So finally, we're like, I'm sorry, if you can't, then we can't.
I know we've asked this and I, Rita beat me to the punch with this. I don't understand that people ask for money and then
And then
they can't spend it down. It just kind of boggles my mind. Why are they asking? They know the procedure.
Well, maybe they thought that, And then, ask, for example, what's happening with their board.
Mhm.
So that's in turmoil, so that was never going to happen. That was 28.5. I think 44.5 was for Rumco for the Metro.
Yeah.
And then Novo bought it, and then they wanted to transfer it to Landmark Place. But by the time that happened, anything that was eligible was already done. So there were no eligible expenses, so those were the big ones.
And
Legal
legal services, what happened with
services,
legal
They had
services?
gotten this windfall from the state, like
And they didn't need the
millions.
money.
Yeah, so they called us and said, we don't need it.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
But they said, don't write them off, they'll be back.
yeah, right. What else? This shows that it's reallocated.
That's,
Let me ask this question. Is there something we can do, we being you guys, to ensure that they spend it? I know, it's like glorified babysitting.
yeah, I
But-
mean,
You
Oh,
probably just don't have the time.
Well, I emailed, are we on 2020, where's 2022?
I didn't get there yet. We were just floating through
Okay.
back into 2022.
So, I emailed everybody, you can see that family has already started to make some strides. Legal services gave the money back. Read and Write already submitted, so did Sunrays and so did YMCA. So, I have emailed all of the others. And because I wanted they should be spending their money, the deadline is June 30th. And then we give them another 60 days because Mandy has 90 days to file the capers, the end of the year.
But it also takes a long time to write the capers, so I don't like to wait till last minute because
Right.
then I have to submit them.
So,
Right, yeah.
I know that I've been in touch with Boys and Girls Club and People's Place. I haven't heard from the others.
Okay, now where I'm heading with this line of questioning, so to say in court, is would additional manpower help our cause here? Would it enable us to put more pressure on people to do what they're supposed to do? Is it a lack of manpower and time in your office?
I don't know about that, but I just don't think that the subrecipients take it seriously, that it's not just our time in this, it's their time in this too. So people who wait until the end of their program year to submit reimbursement, that's a big issue for us too, because I'm getting flagged. So by flags, IDIS in the reporting system that we have to use, if somebody does not do a draw within a certain amount of time, they flag the project. So then we reach out to them and we say, why is it taking so long? HUD wants to know why we haven't drawn down any money. What's holding back your project? Sometimes you get an answer, most times you don't. And what could happen is HUD could decide, and they have, to freeze the funding for that project because they're not getting a response. I get that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, and we've had it where we're down to, I'm gonna say we're down to 3 flags now, not really flagged because I've already answered them, but our HUD rep hasn't gone in to do her end of it yet. We've had it where we've had 20, 30 flags. That's a lot of flags.
Yeah.
Well, you would have that.
I'm not, believe me, I'm not suggesting that
We
the
can't
full
work on
lies
that.
with you.
No, I just think it's the.
I'm just trying to
73.
think of a way that we can maybe improve
Yeah.
the way we lean on people if we have more people.
Well, maybe
that
I'm
would
too
be-
nice. I emailed
I
them.
don't think they take it seriously.
Well, or maybe we have to reconsider who we're funding.
Well, that's
Well,
it.
they haven't they haven't until June 30th, to be fair. The program.
Can I jump in with a question,
It's a
please?
lot of money, there's a lot of money in here that's still available for some of these.
Right, yeah.
Well, most of it is not programs.
Carl.
Carl wants to speak.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is if we award organization A money in year one and they don't spend it and they come back in year two and say, we have a new project, do we look at their past performance and do we weigh that in our assessments of future asks for money? I'm not aware of our doing so, but that's the most obvious way to encourage people to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, is there some way we can, when we start our process of awarding money, can we put it into, at least in the packets that everybody on this committee gets, saying, okay, Boys and Girls Club, they're asking this year, blah, blah, for this purpose. But, and have a spot, are they delinquent in spending their money?
Sure.
If yes, how much? So that we at least see that, and like Carl says, and I think it's been suggested on numerous occasions, that we should hold them accountable for this.
Sure.
And by holding them accountable means we're not gonna award you anymore. So.
I mean, that seems to me an obvious and clean way to go. You know, if I want to, if I'm working in a corporation and I have a brief and I'll do it and I don't do it well, I either get fired or I get a salary cut. There are consequences. This is a contract that they will perform. If they fail to perform, there should be consequences going forward. So, yeah, it seems pretty clear to me that we have to have some sort of grading system or scoring system where this is factored in.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good idea, Carl. I hate to put more pressure on you guys with more stuff to do, but maybe we could have some kind of a scoring system. We get the informational packets with you for Boys and Girls Club rated, 7 out of 10 or 0 out of 10. And, we can kind of build that into our decision-making process. I don't know.
Amy, was there something in the application?
The application states, we gave them 60 days because you have 90 days. So now the application states, if you do not submit your reimbursement by August 31st, you don't get them. You will not be reimbursed.
But I mean, didn't we have some sort of, something in there before we handed off the applications to people to let them know if, or we at least talked about it, having some sort of scoring to say that.
Well, you now in the application
Hey, Mike.
asks, hi Mike. The application now includes, wish I could pull it up, you could.
I have to save it on my desktop so I can get to it.
It's in the shared drive, the applications. And you can see on the applications that they say the previous funding. But I mean, I don't want to, we shouldn't denigrate the programs, AJ Williams, Boys and Girls, CCE, Children's Home, Family, Mentor Me, People's Place, all are considered in compliance. The program year hasn't ended yet. I mean, in my opinion, Mandy and I were talking about this, if you spent the money, then why are you submitting for reimbursement? I mean, do you not need it? But if you're still spending the money, the program is still going, then they wait.
I would think that most people would want or need to, because when they come to us, they're saying, this is what I need in order to run it. So it's like, well, what are you doing from July 1st until, we're in May? So almost a year, what's.
But most of these large amounts those are not programs.
Yeah, those are the cities.
These are, so the question I ask all the time, when we are reallocating or allocating monies to the city, money is just sitting there already, but yet we keep giving more. I don't understand. Someone make it make sense to me.
Well, and the problem here is we can put all this pressure on them and, but bottom line, we're the ones gonna get penalized for this. I mean, obviously, some of these organizations really, I shouldn't say they don't care. They obviously care. They come up with an idea and they want to implement it, but clearly they're not, they're not following through on this.
Well, if we get sanctioned, like I said, we don't know what's gonna happen. If we get sanctioned, that means it's that much less money each year.
Yeah, so it means these people that are delinquent are really going to penalize people maybe next year. And then these people might very well be first timers, and all of a sudden we're going to say, well, guess what? you know?
I
We're
think
just,
that's,
we're down, $100,000 in penalties, so therefore, you're not gonna get a large
My
share.
favorite 100,000 would be lucky.
I'm late to the party, but I just had an idea. When we're getting these reports, because obviously this is my second year and I know a lot of these guys will repeat, can we get a history on them?
Yeah, that's what we're already talking about, making that part of the application process for us to look at. When we get all the info, we want to see right in front of us, okay, these people applied for $200,000. They haven't spent it,
Sure.
they're still
Okay.
down 50. And actually, right before you got here, we discussed possibly coming up with a rating system for these individuals so that we can look quick and say, hey, Boys and Girls Club, they're a 9 out of a 10
Mhm.
on this, where somebody else is 1 out of a 10. So, we can take that into consideration when we're deciding the allocations.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I don't want to put too much pressure. I mean, that's going to be a lot of work, I'm sure, coming up with a point system.
I mean, the history, like just looking at the spreadsheet, a lot of people do complete them. So you're saying, Amy, you understand that these people are technically still in compliance.
Yeah, because the program year hasn't ended yet.
Right, right.
And then they have a couple of months, because let's suppose Boys and Girls Club, the very last expenditure that they incurred was June 30th. Then they have to wait to get the payroll, then they have to assemble it, blah, blah, blah. So we give them a few. So none of these are out of compliance.
The biggest problem is our funding year ends June 30th, but we're tested in May.
Right,
So, you know what I mean? So even though they have until the end of June,
right.
we've got all this money just sitting there because nobody has, put in for reimbursement. But again, if everybody's coming to us and saying, I need to have this to run my program, myself, I'm
I
like,
mean, we could consider maybe, I don't know, are we allowed to require them that they have to submit before,
I was gonna say.
like,
Yeah.
April 1?
That was my idea.
Can we
yeah, because
shorten
what
their
if people,
program?
what if they're
year
just
by month?
not submitting?
Well,
They're,
it
They are
Yeah.
submitting, they're in compliance.
I wouldn't say that's shortening their year, but I think that we would be able to say, by a certain date, you have to be able to at least draw down half of it. I don't know how you can go a whole year and not have to draw down any of your money.
Yeah.
When you say that you need to have the money to run your program.
Right.
I mean, just because it doesn't make it easy for us, May 1st, HUD doesn't care. No, May 1st,
And May 1st it's because it's 60 days prior to the end of our year. Begin for the beginning, that's why.
so HUD can sanction us, but can they, make us give the money back to them if we have it just sitting there?
They could, if they were to go into IDIS, and again, I was talking about the flags earlier, we have some where it's like, you haven't touched money in 2 years. You obviously don't need it, it's sitting there for 2 years.
Right.
So in their mind, they could freeze it, because they're waiting for an explanation. Why haven't you done anything? Why hasn't even 1 cent been drawn down against this money? And all I can do, and Amy, is, we contact them and say, hey, look, you need to tell us why this isn't getting done.
Right.
I can't just pull an answer out of the air and write down, because then I have to justify it.
Have we ever, because this is obviously not the first year that this has happened, right? So have we ever contacted or said to people, why aren't you spending your money?
I do that, yes.
And what do we get back?
We will, we're working on it, I'm still needing more documentation.
I unleashed my pit bull. Then Amy goes wild.
But the bottom line is they're not compliant.
Well, but the
Well, some of them are.
non-for-profits
The
are.
problem is, in theory, yes, they're still in compliance because the end of the year doesn't happen until June
Right.
30th.
Right.
Unfortunately, we're tested May 1st, which is 60 days before the end of our, fiscal year.
Right.
We should never have more than 1.5 times our funding sitting in the US Treasury, and that's what the problem is.
And
We had
who
2.4.
who are repeat offenders?
Besides the city.
Mandy, can you do me a favor and go back to 2021 and we can look at the
That's what I was just
non-for-profits?
looking at, that's what I was getting at when I was saying.
So you can see the non-for-profits, they're great, Boys and Girls Club, Parks and Rec for the
Yeah, they're all-
programming,
yeah.
they're all at 0. Can you go to 2020? So historically speaking, which is what we're doing,
And that's a lot.
it's not the non-for-profit, see, they're all at 0.
Yeah,
this year, 2020 hasn't been completed yet, so not-for-profits are still, getting their stuff. And then the carryover is but we are,
And see, and you don't think that I am, when we're in these meetings, these CDBG meetings, and I'm always talking about what I'm talking about. You
Oh, I don't wonder.
guys think that I'm harsh about it, but
No.
the proof is in the pudding right here.
but we have been assured from engineering that they are, what is that, 600,000 left, that they are going to finish by August.
They've got $565,369 and.
See, here's what pisses me off. Oh, I'm sorry, but here's what,
Speak.
because when I've asked about these sewer projects and things like that, I've always been told we need more money. And you got $600,000 just sitting here.
So I gave them more money, but I have no more money to give. Like, they kept coming to me, I need more, I need more, I need more. Well, I've given it like, I don't have any more money.
Yeah, I mean, 2019, if citywide sewers phase 2, so if I'm looking at that, there's $300,000 left over. And then you add that to the 2022.
2020.
You can see that in the lines.
Yeah, I got very good.
No, I think it was 2020.
Was it 21? I thought it was
Yeah.
2 years later.
So we're almost $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, is that all together?
5 and 3 is 8 and change.
Well, we've got 355 of the, I see what you're saying here.
859, 336.20, and they already spent, much
So
this
how much did they spend? They spent 110
this,
for GPI. I can't pull it up,
well, they were originally, given what, 3,
if you can go into the shared drive,
I'm not on,
you're not on the.
I emailed myself the link, and I downloaded the emails.
I could show you the spreadsheet, but I get locked out
No.
to access my computer after 5 o'clock. Or I would show you the spreadsheet for GPI and Gmail.
My late to the party question is, what can we do then as this committee to either light a fire or say, if you want, in the future, if you guys want this money, you gotta,
Well, I think that's what we were trying to get to before, where, okay, I still don't understand why somebody wouldn't,
Submit.
want to submit and get their money
ASAP.
Yeah,
at least quarterly.
Yeah.
But if not, I think that we could, there's no reason why you can't say at least 6 months into it. You've got to
So January 31st.
at least give us something,
Mhm.
because these flags come up and there's nothing I can do but the flags. I have to answer, and then if I can't answer, at some point they'll freeze it and they're done.
yeah, and I don't want to say this about everybody, but there seems to be a pretty cavalier attitude about this, that, okay, we
I think because
didn't get to
nobody-
it,
I think
so.
because nobody has actually felt the
No one's said,
sting,
nobody's really been held accountable
what I
to,
mean? Like they
Because we
think,
haven't.
we haven't taken money from somebody.
right.
Where if we were to get sanctioned and next year there's less money, that's less money that we give out. That's less money for the city for admin, that's less money for the projects, that's less money for programs.
It's like a domino effect, and
Oh, yeah.
we're not talking about the nonprofits because they're completing. But even, maybe a couple of them have it, but I'm thinking more of like a system wise, these nonprofits are usually understaffed. So to get paperwork in and all that stuff may be a lot, we're not even talking about them. But what I'm saying is domino effect, is it would be affecting them. If these $500,000 grants that are being awarded to the city of Kingston cause flags and increasing.
Right.
Because if we do get sanctioned, it comes off the top. So let's suppose we were supposed to get 688 and they say, well, we're gonna take 1/3 or down to 488, well, that'll affect admin, which is less money for Mandy to reimburse the city for managing me, so that affects the general fund. And it's still the same 15% for programs and then the remainder for projects. And so across the board, all of these programs.
They're gonna be
And they
affected.
actually submitted the annual action plan, it's in the paper, people are thinking, yes, we got the full award, well.
I mean, that's what.
I gotta say, maybe not, we don't know what HUD's, we should know within a few weeks what HUD's going to
I mean-
do, so fingers crossed that they.
And then the other thing too is maybe we don't really take it as seriously as we should because they've never sanctioned us
Right.
before.
Right,
And they haven't taken fruit, you know.
they did freeze our funding several years ago, but
Okay,
we never lost
okay.
money.
Now, let me ask a delicate question here, and you can take the fifth, I guess, if you want. But do we ask the same questions of the city that we do of other organizations? About why this isn't spent and what can be done, because they're gonna
We
be,
do.
they're gonna be in jeopardy too.
We do,
I
so.
mean, we use a lot of this money for city
So when we
projects.
get flagged, the first thing I do is I reach out to whoever's in charge, the project manager, whoever, of that funding and say, hey, look, we've been flagged. What's your reasoning? They want to know, and I do the screenshot. It's not like I'm pulling you like, oh, yeah, I heard from them. I'm like, nope, here it is. It's got the screenshot, it's got the little boxes that says, no funding for a year, no funding for 2 years, nothing done. I
It's
want them to
like
see.
90-day no draw, 180-day no draw, 1 year no draw.
And then you have
And
to, so you have to come up with a remediation plan. You have to tell them what the problem was, you have to tell them what your remediation plan is gonna be, and then you have to give them a date of when you're gonna have it completed. And when you miss that date, it pops up again, it says, woo-hoo, remember us? What's your reason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of reasons, I mean, I'm not even sure, what a good reason would be, is it the amount of time it takes to put a job out to bid and get bids back and start, is it
I mean,
because our process is so
if
complicated?
we're told that that's what the issue is, that's exactly what I tell HUD, because I'm not in charge of that project, I don't know what the holdup is. So if you tell me it's because, we went out to bid and something happened, or we had to go out to bid again, that's the answer that I give them.
Shouldn't there be some kind of reporting though, as far as if they're not spending their monies? And something did come up, put it on bid, something happened, shouldn't they be keeping in constant contact with you in your office to make sure
They
that?
should, but it's only if we go after them.
I mean, I
That's
kind
all.
of know what's going on, because where I sit and where they are, I mean, I hear what's going on. So
So,
maybe, I don't know if it would do any good, if we did a preemptive strike and told HUD, oh, by the way, I don't think they care. If they're giving us money, to help, our, LMI residents, and we're not spending it, like, we're going to give it to somebody else who needs it more.
yeah, well, how involved is, okay, so we do our job here as far as making recommendations of where this money is going to go. And then ultimately, the mayor is the one that makes the final decision. So is he aware of this money not being spent? And if so, what does he say? What's the process? How do we proceed? What's the instruction?
I have meetings with them, and we discuss who spent and who hasn't spent. And then, then I have to get in touch with whoever the department is or subrecipient
And
and,
find out why.
yeah.
Mandy, quick question. You said they give you like 90, 180. Is that almost like down to the day?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, so typically when is that? Because here's my thought process. That's quarterly. So if, let's say, within the first week or two of every single one of those cycles, you get that update. When we have this meeting, it's brought to the group's attention that, hey, we got our 90-day update. These companies or these organizations haven't given us any sort of status updates whatsoever. I'm not
I mean,
trying to flex, but I think if a group
if we have,
message.
if we have flags, like around the meeting is happening, I can do a screenshot so that you guys can see, as far as compliance with IDIS and HUD, where somebody is. If there's a flag, if they haven't answered.
Mhm.
Right now, I just said, before you got here, I've got us down to, it's been teetering between like 1 flag and 3 flags. Right now, we're at 3 flags, but we don't really have flags because I answered. I'm just waiting for our HUD rep to go in on her end. And, we'll get my remediations and see if she approves of it. If she does, she'll mark it reviewed. And it'll sit on the back burner until like the next 60 days comes up and nothing happens. Then it'll show up again saying, hey, forget us, we're over here. So-
Yeah, just, if this group is the one that's, obviously, mayor has final say, but if this group is really the one is allocating the funds, then maybe like a strong worded email, be like, hey, listen, you don't play in the sandbox, you're not gonna get the funding next year. It's just that simple. And, it's like, we have that power. But that's what I'm saying, to get that compliance, I think if we get the update, where it's like, hey, we're at 90 days, these organizations haven't done it, and the council as a group says, get your act together. That's, to me, it has that authority of like, we're the decision makers. Like, if you want your money, you gotta abide by the rules.
And at least it should be made known when these applications are coming in.
That too,
People
yeah.
should be aware of what's happening here.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they take it seriously because nobody's ever had to feel the sting,
Mhm.
Or do they know the system?
Let me,
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm learning this today.
I mean, they know about the kindness, but again, that, like she said, until July 1st, they're still in compliance.
Yeah.
Our issue is our reporting doesn't necessarily go on their scale, but on the other hand, I would think that if you needed the money to run your program, that you would be
Yeah.
requesting at least some of your funding. back.
Or at least updates, you know what I mean? Hey, guys, like, okay, we're,
monthly report.
we're we're seeking out vendors for this, not just, I'm gonna keep you in the dark until the
Right.
very last minute.
Right.
And then, I'm gonna bombard you with paperwork, which gives you guys more work to try and play catch up to meet your deadlines. Like that, to me, that's just not acceptable. Like, and again, quarterly, monthly, whatever it may be, like, you're gonna give us updates about what's going on, or don't even bother applying next year, because we're,
Right. And to Naima's statement, I mean, most of these programs, these organizations have been around the block, so they know.
Mhm.
Every year we get some newcomers, right? But for the most part, it's the same
Yeah,
people that
they're
are
all
applying.
down this path.
Yeah.
Let me put a kind of a little different spin on this, and it's just kind of food for thought. And I don't want to date myself too far back in world history here, but, I was a psychology major in the 70s, and, the big thing, and I'm still a believer in positive reinforcement rather than punishment, is there something we could do to reward them for compliance or filling
Give
out?
them more money, the
monthly
next time they ask.
Do what?
Give them more money, fund them
Well,
again.
something. And I'm not really looking for a solution right now, but it's just, I try and use it all the time, reward instead of, punishment. We're talking about punishing them for not, oh, you're late on the report, we're gonna penalize you. And, what about this? How about, we try and think of some ways that it's to their, it's obvious to their benefit to do this, and this is my 3rd year here, and I don't understand why people aren't doing it. They're asking for money, we're giving it to them.
exactly.
Well,
Boy, I think the world doesn't get any better than that. You ask for money and somebody gives it to you.
I think it just needs to, when we start this whole process, we have all these meetings, right? For you guys to explain to them what's going on. In those meetings, it just needs to be known that, this is what needs to be done. If you don't spend your money, then it can affect every other organization and or program.
Well,
right?
and that's,
And so in
right.
order for everyone to thrive, you have to do your part,
yeah, the penalty is penalties across the board.
right?
So, if
Right.
somebody's screwing up, they're screwing up for everybody, not just themselves.
Yeah.
During
And
the
so
information
it'll-
meetings, we do
it'll-
talk about it.
Minty has told them,
In the information meeting.
our timeliness is your
Specifically
timeliness,
speaks to
your
the fact that our
timeliness.
timeliness is your timeliness.
Now, let me go back to the point system again. You know, maybe there's some way we can build some kind of positive reinforcement into that and let them know, we're gonna be grading you now, and here's the point system we're gonna be using. And if you get a 9, 8, 9, 10, we're gonna give you a higher priority in our selection. Is that against the law to do something like, is it discrimination?
It's probably not. I think the hardest things that we have to get through is they know they have until June 30th. So as long as they do it by June 30th, is that what
Or
it is?
shortly thereafter, yeah.
Then they're still in compliance, you know what I mean? So it's hard to say that if you don't,
Unless I think.
Well, it's hard to say that now, right, until you have to
Unless
wait
you say
until they're out
going
of
forward,
compliance.
we somehow reward them.
I mean, come July
First
1st, you
quarter,
say you
second
guys
quarter.
didn't
Yeah.
submit anything, so now you're not in compliance because it's after, but.
But that's the keeping you in the dark thing, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
yeah, you do have the compliance up until this date, but if you haven't communicated a thing
Right.
for 364 days, like, no, you know, I understand the reward of, hey, let's do this, but to me, the reward is, we've given you this money, like, we've taken it from other people, other organizations who have come in and asked us for money, and we gave it to you. You know, like, the least you could do is do what you're supposed to do
Right,
for that money.
right.
Yeah.
Amy, how much chasing do you have to do? Like, how much chasing do you have to do? You know you know who the problem children are and who they are, because you have to chase them. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I'm just saying,
You don't have to name names.
you
Thank
know,
you, thank you.
but you don't, but I mean, I know that
Well,
there's
I mean,
times.
this year I started early and I emailed everybody like early May, and I said, I know it's early, just wanna get it on your radar, you know. It's time to start thinking.
Have we ever done this now? And, you know, I'm just really, my mind just racing, trying to think of ways we can get them to take this more seriously. Do you ever meet with them? Do you say, I'm going to schedule a meeting with you at City Hall Tuesday at 9 o'clock to discuss your delinquency? Instead of sending them a letter saying you're delinquent, because,
Well, they're not delinquent yet, but I did.
well, I mean, you know, maybe I shouldn't put it that way.
Right.
Like, I don't think a letter really makes a dent. You know, most people throw letters like that away. They don't even look at them. But if I got a letter saying I gotta meet somebody at City Hall, that's gonna make me sit up and take notice a lot more than getting a letter in the mail.
So another, again, I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm just, really just,
Yeah.
you know,
Not naming names, but of those, or, because are we talking about these guys too, or are we talking about, okay. So of the ones that are open, again, without naming names, how many have not been in communication at all?
1, 2, 3, 4. Of the nonprofits.
out of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10?
And 4 of them have submitted. Mandy didn't put in the bicycle safety.
Mhm.
So family has, submitted partially, so they will give me, something soon.
So almost half of them have had no communication at all.
So of those that are still open, 5, 6, 7, I have 4 out of 7.
That's like 75% of them haven't.
Right. Right, 2 of them have responded, and then family has given a partial.
Yeah. I see,
But
that's
the other
just-
4 have not replied to my emails.
So typically they all do get completed, but we're concerned about the flagging.
Correct.
So pattern is they show, but they wait during the feed, which is the flagging.
Right.
Which gives the attention all the heat.
Well, right, by not,
Well, maybe we can
Not
restructure and require, January 31st, we have to, they have to give me 50%.
Yeah, but we can require it all we want, but if they're not gonna follow through with it,
Well, we can look into requiring the sanctions if you don't give us 50% or 25% at the half-year mark, you lose it. Because if your program started in September, clearly you should have had expenses. Your payroll's cleared, you bought your materials and supplies, you had to have something. If you had, say, a school program, and that
I'm gonna be very surprised if you haven't already thought of this, but is it possible to ask HUD for some examples of other counties that have more success in getting compliance?
The
And
response
what do they
is-
do to get compliance?
The response is, what are your policies and procedures?
Right.
You follow your policies and procedures. So we do have a policy and procedure handbook for our office.
But it's just ours, right? It's not,
Right.
it's not a universal.
Right.
That's just
So
deferring
is
to
it
us.
possible for us to see some other ones?
I have to reach out to other communities to see if they have anything. They might not, they might just go by the seat of their pants. But HUD's response to everything that you ask is,
It's up to you.
what is your policy?
I mean, I don't deal with, you guys deal with HUD, I don't know how open they are to this stuff. Maybe they can just say, hey, here's a good idea, you know, you're doing this, why don't you try this? This is what Delaware County does.
We'll get it
They
on
won't, they won't go that far. They'll say,
line.
you know, you can get in touch with, you know, another municipality.
Well, so, I mean, that's good too, I mean, that, you know,
But a lot of municipalities don't give the money out to people. They keep it for just the municipalities.
yeah.
We're like one of the few that gives money out to nonprofits.
One other question, because Amy touched on it for a moment. If we were to say, you know, we need some sort of update by the end of the first quarter, and let's just say it's ABC Company. If ABC Company doesn't comply and we take away their funding, are we allowed to then give it to one of the other organizations?
As long as it doesn't exceed the 15%, and as long as it's one of the activities that was already approved,
Sure.
and go through the process of it. Otherwise, it's a substantial amendment. Anytime you change, like if you had somebody that you didn't fund, but you wish you did, if they had the money.
Yeah.
You can't turn around and say, okay, now we're gonna fund you because you have this other money. That has to go through a substantial amendment because it wasn't actually part of.
Of course, but like if like, let's say we took $10,000 out of Boys and Girls to give the ABC Company, but ABC Company didn't, can we then say to Boys and Girls here, you asked for 10,000 more, here's the 10,000? So I think that should be one of the stipulations, like moving forward, that listen, you have to have these updates, but if you don't provide anything by the first quarter, your funding gets allocated to everyone else who was approved. And that, and again, I know that's the punishment, but to me, that's also the, hey, if I want this money, I gotta do what I'm supposed to do.
But on the other hand, it's a reward for people who are compliant.
Sure.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it is a penalty for non-compliance, but these other folks who are doing
Yeah,
what
I
they
get
got
what I was supposed to do.
are gonna stand to get more.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We can incorporate that into our, so we have a policy and procedure, it's on the website, on under community development.
Mhm.
Maybe for the next meeting, if everybody can take the time to look at that and see where they would like to make, changes or adjustments, and we can incorporate that into it.
Could you do, could you send a
So,
link to us?
yeah.
Free. Sorry. So the question that I had that Steve kind of backed up is, I'm moving forward, if we put in there that by the first quarter, if you don't provide the necessary updates, your funds now get allocated to the other organizations that we had already. You know, so again, just the example I gave was ABC Company, you gave me $10,000, but I don't comply, but Boys and Girls Club has done everything they were supposed to do, you can then give those $10,000 to them, because inevitably what we always wind up doing, and I think this year might have been the exception, is we typically have to, all right, you asked for 70, we'll give you 50, we finagle the numbers to give a little. Exactly.
Some of these programs can be funded the whole ask.
Whole thing, right?
Carl,
Yeah. Somebody tell me,
Oh, sorry, Carl. Let's let Carl jump in here. He probably had his hand up towards no.
Well, my concern with Mike's idea is we don't want to get nonprofit or the people who are asking for money in a pissing match with each other, trying to sabotage each other so they can get access to extra bucks. I think if we want to do anything there and there are people we denied, we often get 30 applications and we only honor 20, we give it to somebody we turn down. But to reward somebody for being in compliance, it creates a sort of an opposition that we don't really want to encourage, I think. Since I have the floor here, I'll just add one more thing, which is I just keep thinking of high school. And these are like kids, and community development needs to be the principle. And I think that sometimes tough love is the way to go. So I'm all for tough love here. And
But it starts at the top.
I'm sorry.
Leadership always starts at the top. With me looking at these spreadsheets, I'm seeing who is, without naming names, who is not in compliance, and it is a lot worse than some of our programs here.
Sure.
You know, so, and if we are not doing what we're supposed to do, how do we demand that others do?
Well, I think that, there are oversight agencies inside of government. So if agency A or the government itself is non-compliant, there's somebody who can call them out or say, get on the case. So I think that just because, or let's just call it what it is. If the government isn't doing its job on this, I think it is totally appropriate for another agency in city government to say, hey, get on the stick, or it's going to be a problem for you. We have to do this in a way that is right. And if I understand correctly, and I may not, this large amount of money that we have in the bank account is basically due to the fact that the grantees have not spent the money. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, then it's on those people to be accountable. One thing I thought was that if we get sanctioned, the grantees who have not been in compliance are on the hook for the percentage of the sanction that we are caused. So if they're responsible for 10% of it, they sign that in advance. Now that is really tough love. That's probably a tougher meal than I would vote for, but it's just the extreme version of how do we get people to really take this seriously rather than go, oh, I'm going to try to get some free money, which is sort of the energy that I'm sensing out of this conversation. Thank you. I'm complete now.
I think we're.
I'll save my next rant for another time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Carl, I don't know if you heard, but I believe Mandy addressed it earlier. There's a lot more paperwork and loopholes to jump through to give it to an organization that we did not already allocate the money for. So that's why we were saying dividing it amongst those that we already approved.
Yeah, it feels like we're, sort of inviting the bees to start swarming, and I just don't. That makes me uncomfortable.
I just don't want us to lose funding. HUD may give us money, but then they may decrease it because we're not spending, which will then really affect the programs. So that's my concern.
Yeah, and you guys shouldn't have to do more work because others aren't doing their part. That's the other part of the equation. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to do all these amendments and do all these other things to, you know what I mean? It's like, you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. It's other.
We may not, but we can't take the chance.
No, you can't blame them, no.
And I think that's part of the problem. We haven't been sanctioned, so that's why we keep doing it. What's the saying? Keep doing it over and over again and expecting different results. What do they call that?
Insanity.
Yes, right.
And inanity in this case.
Yeah.
So I think you were talking about, Mandy's gonna send us a link to the policies and procedures that they have, and she asked us to look through them and kind of, and then we obviously want to try and put that, first quarter thing in there, and then, is there the packet of information that organizations get? Can you also put that in there so we can look at the wording in there? And, obviously we probably have to get court counsel involved in this, but just put the wording in there, like, again, to me.
We have a clawback clause in the policy and procedure.
Okay.
But that's that's August 31st, 60 days after the.
Right, but there's still a
And we
clawback.
never had that before, and we have had some recipients go past the 60 days.
Now, was Carl's one suggestion, is that legal?
Yeah,
Or their-
about
the organization being on the hook for the,
for,
Well, they will be this year. If we get sanctioned and everybody, and we get reduced by, say, a third, you know, third of 280 is, I mean, 680 is like what, 225? So if we reduce by 225, then 15% of that is
Gotta come from somewhere.
$33,000 off of programs.
yeah,
So 2023, you know, you lose, can you go to 2023? So just out of programs,
Oh, hang on.
we're waiting.
I know. I was scanning it across the. You can tell by that.
So of the, you know, of the program money, you know, 15%, and Carl is saying, and he's got a good point. I mean, do we do across the board 15,000, or do we kind of take it out on the people who might be responsible for our lack of time?
oh, the ones that are responsible.
yeah,
If the- again,
why penalize people
Yeah,
that are in
The
compliance?
thing is, though, it would have to come out, some of it have to come out of programs because we max out at 15% of programs. So we couldn't just take it off of, say, the city projects, because then that would be in excess of 15%.
You have to take it off with some of the programs.
Right.
yeah.
And as I said, come off of programs, it would come out of admin, which would affect the city's budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Mandy has 136,764 promised to John Tui, so multiply that times 0.85, and that's what they would get. If it's, you know, I'm just throwing out a random
Sure.
number. Carl?
Oh, has to say that.
Yeah, I just want to add, clearly, we can't do this retroactively. We would have to do this, it would have to be part of the agreement that they signed going in, but we can't go to the people who are delinquent now, and if we get sanctioned, go, oops, by the way, remember that thing you signed last year? You're going to be in the, that we cannot, that would not fly legally. It would be unethical. It would be wrong for 20 reasons. But it's something, it's part of a package of options, which we could, on a file folder called Tough Love, that I think we should be considering going forward.
It could be incorporated into the 2023 agreements because they haven't been signed yet. They can't be signed until after HUD does an approval of our annual action plan and they send the mayor a contract.
Oh.
Once he signs the contract and goes back, then we have the ability to get the money. Until then, no.
Gotcha.
So we could do something temporary.
Okay, Rita.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate you.
All right, talk to you later. I
So,
know we discussed, I think it might have been, I don't know if you were here or not, but we were discussing reasons that the city gives for their delinquency, for projects that they wanted money for. Have we ever gotten the reason, I'm not gonna say excuse, that they don't have enough manpower to follow through on their request?
I haven't heard that. I don't know.
and then just for specifically engineering,
No, he said the city in general, so
Yeah,
not to pick on, but like, let's say DPW.
yeah, I'm saying somebody puts in
DPW
for.
is it's mostly Parks and Rec and the city
Okay,
that,
yeah.
and Health and well, it's 2023, so we can't say anything about Health and Wellness. So, engineering, as I aforementioned, GPI was their designer for, you know, the sewers.
Mhm.
And they were very slow to.
They weren't
invoice.
submitting invoices to get paid, therefore the
Right.
city couldn't ask us for reimbursement because they need to have.
And they bugged
Proof of
GPI,
it.
the GPI.
Yeah,
I was this close to calling GPI myself.
Right.
John said I could, but I'm like, oh, I should.
Yeah, I mean, I at least get that, you know, but has anybody put in for, I'm gonna say new sidewalks? And then you get the money and say, no, we really don't have, I don't have the manpower to do that.
Oh, no, they can't do that. It's a reimbursement. So they don't get the money ahead of time. They have to go through the project, get the invoices, pay the invoices, and then give Amy copies of everything. And then we go through it. And then we reimburse the city. The city never gets the money ahead of time.
No, I'm not saying they got the money. I'm just saying they put in for it.
And then they don't
But
do the
then
project
they're
at all.
gonna say, well,
Oh,
you know, we really can't do that project because I don't have the staffing now.
well, not because of staffing, but there have been some projects that did not happen where the money was reallocated to another Parks and Rec project.
So it's not a big problem that happens. That they just physically can't.
No, I mean, it could, I don't, you know, they could have several reasons. You know, they might decide that maybe they didn't need a new roof, or maybe they didn't need the gutters or whatever, maybe they need it on another building. You know what I mean? So then they can ask to have the money transferred, which they've done. Like they needed additional monies for Parks and Rec infrastructure phase 2. They were allocated originally 155. Part of that was the 20,000 for the fountain up on the Academy Green. So then, the mayor asked me if I could come up with additional funding for the play surface at Hadley Park. So,
Guys, I'm going to jump in. I have to sign off, so I just want to say goodbye and thank you. I have to get somewhere else, but thank you. Good meeting. Appreciate it.
All right, Carl.
Carl, thank you.
They had asked if we had any additional funding because they needed funding for the Hasbrook play surface. So I was able to find them from reallocating money or from some of their projects that they were not able to do. Parks and Rec, I was able to move that money over into this. So
Yeah.
you'll see where they were originally funded 155. I gave them another 120 for 275. They spent the 120 on the playscape, and we're still waiting for them to do whatever their other projects were for that 155. Did I answer your question?
Well, that wasn't my question, but yeah, I mean,
You know, I don't remember a city project just being completely abandoned.
all right,
No.
that's a comfort.
Yeah, I mean,
I
the
wouldn't
thing
wanna hear
is,
that.
and a lot of the money kind of was housing rehab that is now going to Red Cove for first time home. So in that sense, that's kind of, I don't know where that falls under. Is that a program? I think that's a separate,
Yeah, it's a program,
yeah,
but
it doesn't count toward the 15%.
no, housing is separate. But,
No, but no capital projects for the city so far.
well, no, I think there was one, but they had funding from another source and they used funding. So because I reallocated a full 30 from, I don't know if it was Rondout or Hodge, but something that didn't get done because it was already paid for with other funding. So then I just moved it so that it could be replaced.
But the sewers will definitely be spent.
All right, okay. That's good.
So just so everybody is on the same page. I have 2 years where there's funding that needs to be reallocated. The CARES money, which is 58,000, some of the subrecipients were unable to use their funding. So when I was speaking with HUD, they said the best thing to do is to reallocate that towards like a Parks and Rec project. By that, like an outdoor, for social distancing, so you can have
Sure.
an outdoor facility, whatever. So that would be an easy move for that money. And then there's an additional 72,590. I can't just move that, I have to make that a substantial amendment because that takes it over the 20% that I'm allowed to move. So with that being said, I still have money in the program income account from the sale of 232 Elmendorf Street. And I think I have another, on top of this, I can come up with, I think it's about $225,000 that needs to be reallocated because we're not supposed to be sitting on that money. So, I don't know if the mayor has, intentions of moving that into the sewer fund because they keep needing more money. I don't know who's gonna pay for the sewers at the end of the day. I don't know if you guys are bonding or if they have enough money or if they're getting it from ARPA.
I think the sewers would fund it.
But,
No,
if they can spend it, it's a way for us to get rid of it, that's
Sure.
fine, because that counts against our time limits too, because we're not supposed to sit on that.
me personally, the one that popped in my mind immediately was the lawyer group.
They gave back their money,
They gave back their
yeah,
money.
legal
Okay.
services of Hudson Valley.
Yes,
They had a windfall,
okay.
so they didn't finish out their COVID, they turned down, was it 2022?
Yes,
Done.
yep.
But they said, don't write us off, we'll be back. But they don't need funding
Okay.
from us, for this year. So they were awarding 2022 9848.
All right, now. What about the housing rehab? Could that be? No,
Everything got
okay.
reallocated, now that's gonna be first-time home buyers and Rockco's. And, they got funding for 2023 as well.
Okay, I'm just looking at, like, with the end of
Mhm.
good cause eviction and everything like that, there's gonna be,
And that's why some of the CV, can you go back to 2019, Nancy? Thank you. If you look at Rupco, where's Rupco? For the CV,
43.
Are,
line, well,
oh,
36 and
36.
40.
so
They
there's.
didn't spend $24,000 in rental assistance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 19 pre-COVID.
Well.
Well,
we-
No, I know.
Well, 19 was the only year that we could get into to open up a substantial amendment because
2020 hadn't happened yet.
previous person hadn't filed the 2020 action plan yet. So you couldn't do that, you had to go backwards.
So do you need us to, like, approve a decision, or are we just saying, like, the easiest thing to do would be giving it to the sewer project, because they're inevitably gonna need it?
Well, I haven't had the conversation with the mayor yet, but I'm pretty sure that sewers is the way, it's either gonna be sewers or Parks and Rec.
Okay,
But I would think that sewers would be, I would say a more logical choice because they don't have the, Parks and Rec
Yeah,
has
I
the,
think that's a no-brainer.
I mean, Parks and Rec has their fund, whatever that is.
Yeah, with the state of our infrastructure, I think it's a good time.
But I mean, I just think that.
Yeah,
But
no,
it's not, I mean, it's not my fault. I would just think that that would be a good place to put it.
just say,
And if it helps us get rid of the money, so it erodes us down.
Yeah, I'm certainly.
Yeah, I agree.
But that would certainly have to be part of a substantial amendment because of the amount, so I could do that, which is 72. And take care of that, and then the 58, we would just have to put into Parks and Rec
Gotcha.
thing, because they said that'd be the easiest.
Honestly, at this point, like, whatever makes your jobs.
And just so you know, in the COVID, when people could not, like you see where Boys and Girls Club, under the additional, we give them another 14, 6, 10, 50 on top of what they were given because other people couldn't use the money. So anybody that we knew were able to use the funds, we turned around and said, give us your backup for this and we'll give you additional funding.
Right,
So, soon, and I don't have an exact date yet, we do have to get started on our 5-year comp plan, consolidated action plan, so it's a 5-year plan. 2024 will be the first year in that plan, so that's where the annual action plan will go for the first 5 years. I was not involved in the last one, but it's a process. So, we're gonna have to hire a consultant. And then they'll hold a host of meetings and they will basically write our 5-year comp plan, but based on what the council says, what the public has to say. Everybody gets to formulate what they believe the needs are for the city of Kingston. We also have to have a language access plan. And I tried to get this started a year and a half ago during the budget process, but it was taken out of my request. So I'm gonna come to visit you. And I mean, you guys can say no, but it's something the city has to have, so, you can turn me down, but you still gotta come up with the money.
I thought there was some sort of, an ARPA or something, I thought. I saw something for the language action plan.
Oh, really?
I could be, it sticks out, the second you said that, it popped in my mind, so I'm not
Oh, but
100% sure, but
if they would like to fund a language access plan, because we are actually out of compliance with HUD for that. They were supposed to have had that like, I wanna say 5, 8 years ago. So, yeah, if we could, get a consultant that could do both, maybe you get like a discount,
Yeah. But if ARPA can, I'll talk to Bill about that tomorrow.
I'm sure the city needs to have a language access plan in general. I mean, I know anybody that uses CDBG funds are supposed to have a language access plan to go with it.
Actually, messaging building.
Oh,
Okay. Beat that to death enough? Shall we move on to these other items, or
Well, they kind of all.
have we really kind of
I
covered,
think they all were kind of like.
we're kind of
all rolled up,
covered
right?
everything, right?
I don't know what's on there, I don't remember, but we covered the timeliness, we covered the spreadsheet.
Yeah, HUD reporting. I mean, last time we were out of timeliness and we threatened, we heard by early June. I think the letter, I must have had the letter, it was like June 2nd, June.
Yeah.
So
We also
we
have-
should know about 3 weeks.
We also have a new HUD rep, and we also have a new director of HUD in New York City. So the previous one retired, we have a new one. So you never know what
That's
comes
not
with
good.
new people.
Okay, now, the letter we got as a threat, was
I
it,
can
was
show
it
it to you.
specific, no, was it specific or just
It-
threatening you?
There was a threat, but they explained the ratio and how sanctions may be imposed.
And then what has to happen is the city has to write a plan of how they
And
intend
to address
on addressing, you know, what the issues are, how you're gonna get it compliance, how you're gonna spend the money.
Language action plan.
access.
Language access. But, yeah.
Okay, then. Okay,
I'm good.
I think that's it, right?
Second.
Oh. Come on, you don't love us anymore, you're not hanging out with
I love that
us.
so much, I'm just so tired.
All right, so are we adjourned? Hey,
Motion.
second, motion second. We are adjourned. Thanks, ladies. That was actually very informative. I hope we come up with a couple of things we can use.
Oh, do I know how? I'm not sure.
Just hit the
The red.
The red.